Hey everybody, my name is Paul Esden Jr., aka Boy Green. Welcome to the Jet Zone. Right here on my YouTube channel. I'm also on my Facebook page, The Jet Zone, and also on our Twitter page, The Jets_Zone. Thanks everybody for joining us here. And this is exciting. This is amazing. First off, welcome back, I guess, to myself. Last week we took the week off because a week ago, well, at this very time, I was waiting in the hospital for my daughter to be born, and now here we are a week later. I'm back at home, and it's just a blessing. So I want to first off thank everybody for all their kind words and wishes. Again, for the birth of my daughter, my very first child, Zariah Luna Serenity Esden. It's a blessing, and thank you so much. Everybody, for all your support, all the kind words on Facebook and Twitter and text and everything else. I want to say thank you. And I'm happy to be back. We've got a lot to talk about. Now, first off, for all our audio listeners only, this audio feed will be uploaded later to Sports War Radio, where the Jet Zone is. But we had such a great response from you, the fans, last time on the video feed that we had to do it again, and maybe we'll do this consistently moving forward, no matter where you're watching. Again, we're streaming live simultaneously in 3 different places. My YouTube channel, youtube.com/boygreen25, my Facebook Jet Zone account, The Jet Zone, and also on Twitter at the Jets_Zone. Now, wherever you're watching, feel free to drop some questions in on anything New York Jets. We're going to be talking Senior Bowl today. We're going to be talking the latest with Mekhi Becton. We'll give you the latest on Cam Clark, unfortunately retiring early due to injury. We'll talk about that. And, of course, any of your questions, the draft, the Senior Bowl, what have you. And we may have a special guest joining us later in the show. This is a bit different because it's live and the Senior Bowl practices and things are going on right now. So we may not get our special guest live from Mobile, but we'll keep you posted on that. Again, wherever you're watching, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, make sure you drop a comment in and join us. Come hang out. This is a lot of fun. It's a cool opportunity to engage and obviously hang out with all of you. Real quick, though, before we move on, wherever you're watching and supporting the show, if you're listening to the show, make sure you go to iTunes, give us a 5-star review, and give us your honest feedback on the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, which is something I've been really pushing lately because it expands beyond just the once-a-week podcast, make sure you hit a thumbs up on this video and hit that subscribe button. We got wonderful, great content. Earlier this week, on our Mock Draft Monday special, which every Monday we have a different guest joining us on the show, whether a draft analyst, whether an insider, whether a fellow Jets content creator, whatever, you name it, you got it. This Monday we had a Green Bean on, who's phenomenal, and I love Green Bean. So we had him on the channel. But you can check out the full playlist on YouTube. It's Path to the 2022 NFL Draft. Some of the guests we've had on the show include Green Bean, Connor Hughes of The Athletic. Let's see. Who else have we had? We've also had Ethan Greenberg, New York Jets team reporters down there in Mobile. And, of course, Ryan Roberts, NFL draft analyst. So we've had a lot of great names. So we have a lot more great names to come. So make sure you support the series wherever you're watching. Like I said, we've got a lot to get to here on the show. Let's jump over to a couple of comments that just jumped in on YouTube. We've got Jared Helmuth saying, congrats on being a dad. Thank you so much. It's an unreal experience. Again, the thing that I just can't get over with myself, quite frankly, is that you and your significant other made love. Sorry to give you all the business, okay? And then we have a child, and that child has features from both of us. That, to me, is just wild. And, I don't know if it's truly hitting home. But thank you, Jared, and, again, everybody, for all the kind words. I really appreciate it. Let's go over to Braden on YouTube. Trey McBride really does sound juicy. I love you using the juicy word. That's one of my favorites. Does he go first round, though? With all the tight end depth in the draft, should we bother chasing him? Great question. From everything I'm hearing from all the important draft people, Trey McBride's draft stock certainly is rising from what he's doing down there in Mobile. But from what I understand, I do not believe he will go first round. There's obviously always the chance. You can never say never. We're here in February 2nd, early afternoon here as we're recording this podcast. But it's possible he goes. I think he's a natural fit for the Jets. Again, they have 35 and 38, their own second-round pick, and the Panthers' second-round pick. So either one could be a landing spot there. We will see. And in terms of the depth, I think that's the thing that should make you feel good. If at the end of round one, the end of night one, we see Trey McBride go off the board, while it will be somewhat disappointing because getting the number one tight end in theory in the draft consensus wise to the Jets, where that's their top need, I mean, that would be natural. And a lot of fans would be upset if McBride went off the board before the Jets had the chance. But to your point, I think there's just such incredible depth. Pick your guy. There's a million guys down there at the Senior Bowl and beyond, quite frankly, that I think are all great fits. So, I'm not saying we shouldn't bother chasing him, but don't be too disappointed if we don't end up with McBride. Maybe we get Ruckert or whoever, again, don't fret too much, Jet fans. We're going to get our guy, whether it's in the draft, and I love the options in free agency. I've mentioned them before. Again, you could go high class with Dalton Schultz or Mike Gesicki, but there's so many others in terms of if you want a veteran, there's Zach Ertz. If you want a young high upside guy, Mike Gesicki, we just talked about. If you want like a dart throw, Evan Ingram, David Njoku, OJ Howard, again, the names go Gerald Everett, whoever. Again, whatever your flavor is, that will be available this offseason. Let's go back to Jared here on YouTube. Again, you guys can watch wherever. We're streaming live right now on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and the audio will be later updated to Sports War Radio, where we are an audio podcast. But back to Jared here on YouTube. Unless the Jets trade down from 10 or up from 35, they're going to miss on McBride. That is very possible. Again, the Senior Bowl historically has done a phenomenal job of increasing stock and providing an opportunity, rather, for these guys to kind of change your own destiny, so to speak. It is possible. I think if you're trading back from 10, you probably got to trade into the 20s, which would be great because the Giants did that last year and picked up the Chicago Bears extra first-round pick and change. They also had a mid-rounder in that year's draft and this year's draft. So I wouldn't be upset if you trade back twice or one big one, and then you still pick up McBride in the 20s. That's possible for sure, or moving up from 35. But the good news is, Jared, the Jets have options. They can move up. They can move all around the board. They run the draft with their assets, have the number one assets in the 2022 NFL draft, so they can do whatever they want. They want to move up, package move back. I mean, the world is their oyster. And back to Braden here again. Paul, welcome to fatherhood, buddy. It's a blast. I really hope so, man. I really hope so. It has been so far. It is, again, an unbelievable experience. And again, I'll do another shout out here real quick, then we'll go through all our topics. We've got a lot of things on the docket here. Wherever you're watching, please show your support. Hit the like button on our Facebook page. Hit the follow button on Twitter. And please, number one is YouTube. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. We have so much content coming. Your support means all the world difference. So if you could take a few moments to jump to the different portals and show your support, that would be lovely. With that being said, a couple of topics. Let's get to the most recent first. That is the Cameron Clark news. Unfortunate news earlier today. Rich Cimini broke the news for ESPN, the former fourth-round pick, offensive lineman out of Charlotte. He's calling it a career. He's hanging it up. And unfortunately, he suffered a spinal injury, a spinal cord injury last year during, it was early August, like August 3rd. In training camp, and it was kind of a routine play, an 11-on-11 drill. And Cam Clark, after the play, and the players kind of separate, he laid motionless on the ground for several minutes. It was a scary scene, had to be transported via ambulance to a local hospital. And a lot of us were like, oh my gosh, is his career over? We openly speculated about that. But after the initial rounds of tests, it seemed from Robert Saller's perspective that he could make this full recovery and he would be okay. Unfortunately, how things have progressed, complications from that injury. Cam Clark, unfortunately, had to hang up the cleats, and he's only 24 years old. And it's a shame because he's a young player with upside. I thought after they redshirted him year number one, which basically is what happened, and then heading into second year, which was this past season, which would have been his second season, I said, oh, great, he can compete at right guard. You have Greg Van Roten. You have all these guys, Alex Lewis, et cetera. Oh, maybe, Cam Clark could be that guy. I mean, Jet fans wanted that to happen. They wanted to speak that into existence, and unfortunately, it didn't go that way. And again, now Cam Clark's career is over. And I will say this on the Cam Clark thing, is that now, separating, obviously I feel for Cam Clark. I feel for the player. I hope he can have a second act of life and coaching or whatever he wants to do. Because again, according to Rich Cimini's report, if Cam Clark continued to play, because the doctors assessed him and said, hey, if you keep playing, there's a chance you could be paralyzed. And obviously that's a life-altering event, and Cam Clark had to make a business decision and step away, and I don't blame him at all. So from a personal standpoint, again, my heart goes out to Cam Clark and his family for everything that transpired from that standpoint. But from the Jets standpoint and stepping away from Cam Clark, the overall 2020 draft class, folks, yikes. I mean, let's go through. Mekhi Becton, who we'll get to in a minute. This is a guy that isn't right now, again, we'll get to the comment in a little bit, guaranteed a starting spot on the team. He was the 11th overall pick in the draft. Joe Douglas's first ever draft choice. He may not even be a starter next year. Boy, terrible. Second round, Denzel Mims, a guy I liked a lot. The Jets passed on other quality guys. Chase Claypool, Van Jefferson. They traded back in that draft, and they could have done a number of things. They chose to trade back to 59, still got Mims, which, again, it's always, everyone wants to be Monday morning quarterback, right? Where they say, Mims, what a terrible pick. But everyone at the time gave the Jets a lot of credit and rose petals at their feet for, wow, what a pick. You trade back and still get this great value. A guy that a lot of people thought could go end round one. So, again, I'm not going to be Monday morning quarterback here, but we just have to address it with what it is. Again, Becton's not even a guaranteed starter next year. Yikes. Second rounder, Denzel Mims. He's been thrown around in trade circles left and right. Yikes. Third round, Ashton Davis, who I love the athletic piece of clay. I love the thought process with the pick, but it hasn't translated. He's been a poor tackler, poor angles. Again, it just hasn't worked out so far. The other third-round pick, Jabari Zaniki, he's been cut already. He's hanging out on the practice squad. Let's go to the fourth round. Cam Clark just retired. Bummer news. James Morgan, he was cut. Go to the other fourth rounder there in that draft as well. And again, you just start looking at some of these guys. You start asking yourselves, like, boy, I mean, like, what's happening here? When you look at some of these draft picks, okay? The fifth round, like, okay, great, you got Bryce Hall. He looks like the best of the bunch, if I'm going to be honest. But, I mean, come on, people. You got to know that is disappointing. And then you go to the sixth round, and sure, I guess you had Braden Mann, who's a starting punter, but, I mean, he's a punter, people. He's a punter. So, I mean, no offense to our punters that are listening in, and I love punters. But at the end of the day, I mean, you look at the 2020 draft class, and it looks like an epic disaster. Absolutely. It looks like an epic disaster for Joe Douglas in his first draft class, which, like I said, is incredibly disappointing from that standpoint. It's incredibly disappointing. But again, for the Jets, and I don't want to, again, harp on this too much, but when you look at this draft class and you look at, unfortunately, what has not been able to transpire here, it's disappointing. And then when you look at the success of what appears to be the 2021 class with Zach Wilson, again, still TBD, obviously, there. But you look at Zach Wilson, you look at Elijah Vera Tucker, who I like a lot. You look at Elijah Moore, okay, Michael Carter, and you kind of bounce around the draft. There's a lot to like, and for good reason. But at the end of the day, I mean, some of our zest is kind of taken away because of, and the other pick I forgot, LaMichael Pirine, he's been buried on the bench. He's been buried on the bench, man. So, again, the draft class, if you kind of look at it as a whole, it's just underwhelming. And it takes away a little bit of the zest from what happened in the 2021 class, because that's why the Jets have missed the playoffs for 11 straight years, which is the longest drought in the NFL and tied for the longest drought in Jets franchise history. This is as long as this is as bad as it's ever been, to put it bluntly. So, it's disappointing for Cam, and then disappointing overall for Joe Douglas that those swings and misses look so bad. And that's why, again, the Jets are where they are. That's why they've been bad for so long, is you need these draft classes to be the foundation of what your organization's supposed to be. And unfortunately, Joe Douglas, especially that first class, again, the second class looks great, but again, whether or not that happens is really up in the air. So that 2020 class is not looking good. But obviously the Cam Clark news today, super sad from that standpoint. Let's go to some comments here. Back to Braden on YouTube. Our injury problem has to change. Very sad for Cam Clark. He would have been great. Yeah, again, I thought there was a lot of potential there. Looking at the tape, thought he could have been a plug-and-play guy who had a nice floor. I don't know what the ceiling would have been, but it's something, again, we won't really know. We won't really know. Let's go to another comment here from Braden on YouTube. What did you think about the Jets playing Zion Johnson at center? I thought that was very interesting. I will say this. Here's a little Senior Bowl nugget, and I have a guest coming up in the next couple of weeks in the month of February that has a lot of insight into the Jets Senior Bowl experience. I'll keep that TBD, but keep an eye out for that on my Mock Draft Monday series. But the thing I would like to say about this is that this is experimental ground. Now, you get the practices, You get the behind the scenes with the meal time and things of that nature. But Braden, what you just asked, the Zion Johnson at center, who's an interior offensive lineman, and he was playing some center for the Jets during practice. And then even after practice, he was spotted practicing playing the center position, which I like a lot. He could be in play for either of the Jets picks at the top of the second round. So keep an eye out for him. He is a rising star at the Senior Bowl. And Green Bean on our latest mock draft mocked him to the Jets. But I will say this. I thought it was very interesting. And this is the more you can do, the more feathers in your cap you can have, the higher you'll be drafted, the more highly sought after you will be. So I loved it. And again, Joe Douglas loves those guys that are scheme versatile. Because again, Connor McGovern was a solid player last year. I know a lot of people want to get rid of him. Again, in a perfect world, if you could kick him to right guard, bring a new center in, I'm all for that. So that, to me, would be very interesting. But again, with all the injuries that the Jets seemingly have every year, I have no problem having a guy that could be right guard or center, phenomenal, and give you a lot of scheme versatility there. That would be very nice. That would be very nice. Go over to Jared on YouTube. The entire draft revolves around whether or not Becton comes back healthy. That is 100% true, and the same can be said for 2021. What Zach Wilson ultimately becomes will define the entire draft class. So let's get right into it. Let's get into the Mekhi Becton stuff. So here it is. Mekhi Becton tears some ligaments in his knee week 1. He also dislocates his knee, and we think he's going to be out for a batch of time. And it was a horrible situation. Week 1, man, what a bummer, especially after all the time he missed as a rookie. And I'll just take this off the screen real quick, Jared. But the fact of the matter is this, is that it's been a disappointing run for Mekhi Becton, obviously. He was drafted as one of the top 4 offensive tackles of that class. There was a lot of hype. Just passed on Tristan Wirfs, who's been an all-pro for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, the reason why, from everything I've gathered, the Jets did not take Wirfs was they wanted a left tackle. They did not want a right tackle. They wanted a guy who could be left tackle from day one. Now, little did the Jets know that they already had their left tackle, in theory, in George Fant. And if they would have signed him, which they did, and plugged him in at left tackle and had Wirfs at right tackle, there's your tackle tandem. But I digress. Again, we're not going to play this Monday morning quarterback thing, although we can think about it and go, what could have been? But anywho, we'll get to that later. The point is this. Is Mekhi Becton was challenged by Robert Saleh. After the Senior Bowl practice day 1, Robert Saleh met with the media, exclusively the beat, and he was asked about Mekhi Becton, and he said that Mekhi Becton basically is not guaranteed to be a starter. We could go through all the comments. You guys can bring them up here in the comments, but the comments from Robert Saleh was that Mekhi Becton has to reassert himself, quote unquote, into the starting lineup. He is not guaranteed a job, and that it will be him and George Fant battling it out. And Saleh did not rule out potentially, drafting a guy, whether at 4 or 10 or wherever in the draft, and then having him and Becton or the loser of that left tackle battle compete for right tackle. So competition is in the air, and I want to say this because I've got a lot of comments on social media about this, so let's talk about it. Okay. Here's the thing. I love competition. Competition breeds success. I think when you have someone else that is hot on your tuchus competing for the same exact thing, you guys are going to be better because of it. So that is good. In theory, on paper, I love what Saleh's doing. I think he's handling it appropriately, and I think he's handling it right. I think that's all good in the hood. But I think from a fan's perspective, and again, I am both the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com and the self-proclaimed biggest Jets fan in the world. I try to mesh those worlds and give you guys both what my work tells me and what my fandom tells me. I think that gives you a beautiful balance here. But I want to say this, is that from a fan's perspective, Mekhi Becton was the number 11 overall pick. We're heading into year 3, and he's not even a guaranteed starter? Yikes. Again, I don't want Saleh to just give him the job. That's not what I'm saying. So I want to clarify this because I don't have 280 characters to live by. I can speak whatever. They're just my words on this podcast. But I'll say this, is that you would, like, for instance, pick other guys from that draft class. Is there any question whether CeeDee Lamb is a starter heading into this year? Of course not. He looks like a star. Tristan Wirfs? Of course not. He looks like a star. But that's the point, is that as a fan, I'm incredibly disappointed. I mean, Becton is not a guaranteed starter heading into year 3, according to Robert Saleh, because he hasn't done enough, because he's been too injury prone, and apparently potential work ethic, weight issues, and all those other problems. So the fact of the matter is, I'm disappointed as a fan. I hope that this is the proper fire under Mekhi Becton's butt, and he goes, man, I'm going to take over the world. And he tweeted out that movie reference to, I'm a lion and I'm going to rip people apart and all this other stuff. I hope that's right. I hope it motivates him, and then next year we all shut up and Mekhi Becton's a superstar, which we all believe he has the talent to be. But again, from a fan's perspective, I'm incredibly disappointed that Mekhi Becton is not this guaranteed starter because he hasn't done enough. I wish he would have done enough, that it would be a no-brainer. But here we are. And like I said, this whole thing is disappointing. But again, I want to reiterate that I think Saleh's handling this the right way with the Becton situation. I see a lot of new people joining us on the live stream. Again, folks, my name is Paul Easton Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green. And welcome to the Jet Zone. This is my podcast. I've been hosting this for over a decade. Wherever you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, jump into the comments and throw a question in, throw a topic in you want discussed, or anything of that matter. So feel free and make sure you show your support. Thumbs up, subscribe button, and everything else. Again, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So I see a lot of new people joining us, so feel free to do that in the comments. All right, let's get into some more questions here. I'll try to work the questions in. Normally, when I'm recording this as the audio only from the radio station, I do the first half of just going through topics, and then we save the mailbag for the second half of the show. But with these live streams, I love incorporating all your questions live as we're going, and the show kind of morphs to what you guys want to talk about. But we do have a few topics we'll get into in a minute. But let's get back to the questions. Okay, let's see. Matthias Simon, Boy Green. Lots of talent at the Senior Bowl. I 100% agree. I think this is such a unique advantage for the New York Jets coaching staff to be able to see these guys. And one of the cool things for me is when you put these guys in the pressure cooker, like you ask some player to go up to the whiteboard and draw me up a play, or what do you do in this situation, or whatever, and then they struggle. I want the struggle, and then how do they bounce back from the struggle? When they're pressed by the coaches, some hard coaching, do they fold like a cheap suit? Or do they step up to the plate and learn and ask questions and things of that nature? That's a lot of stuff we're not going to see. We're only going to hear reported. But there's a ton of talent at the Senior Bowl. All right, here. All right, back to Matthias. Jermaine Johnson, edge out of Florida State, having a great Senior Bowl practice. 100% from people I'm talking to. He could be the third edge off the board, which would be crazy because you were thinking guys like George Karlaftis. Obviously, you have Kayvon Thibodeau, you have Aiden Hutchinson, but Jermaine Johnson, that stock is going up, baby. So he could be talented. The Jets could have that decision maybe by the time the draft rolls around 10. You're like, wow, can't believe we got Jermaine Johnson number 10. Or maybe he's a trade back possibility from 10. Either way, he is looking exceptional. He is blowing dudes up. So he is looking phenomenal. So he's having a terrific Senior Bowl, no question. Great comment there, Matthias. Back to you. Becton goes nowhere. Moving to right tackle if he can't win the job. See, here's what's going to happen, Matthias, just to kind of clear up the air from what we've heard from Saleh. So right now, in early February, we're going to have George Fant versus Mekhi Becton. The winner is our left tackle. The loser competes at right tackle. They won't just be handed the job at right tackle either. So if, let's just say Becton lose for the sake of this conversation. So Becton slides over to right tackle, and a draft pick in Becton or Morgan Moses, if he's brought back, will compete at right tackle. So nothing will be handed to Becton. But to your point, he has right tackle experience. He had a little bit of it at Louisville. And George Fant, obviously, who's been the right tackle predominantly with the Jets, he has experience, although he played left tackle this past season. So either guy has dual experience, which is a great first world problem for the Jets to have. All right, back to Matthias here. Linderbaum at 10, move McGovern to right guard, out left tackle, and our right tackle, or set top 10 offensive line. Again, you'd have, in theory, Becton, Fant, Linderbaum, McGovern, and then Elijah Vera Tucker as your left guard. I love that combination. I'm not mad at that. I think, again, Linderbaum at 10 will be a tad rich. Maybe they could trade back. I love maximizing it, but if that's your guy and you just think this guy's going to be a Quentin Nelson all-pro basically on the offensive line, then I don't blame you potentially for going that direction. But, hey, build a wall around Zach Wilson. I love it. All right, this is a long comment here, so let's see. From Jared Helmuth on YouTube, a lot of people want to go offense early in the draft, but with the quote-unquote experts having this as a defensive-heavy draft in the top 50, do you think it would be better to go D at 4 and 10 and not reach? This is the key, Jared, is whatever the Jets board says to them. And again, it appears to be a defensive-rich draft in a lot of different areas. Again, whether you're a linebacker guy, Nakobe Dean, Devin Lloyd, whether you're a Sauce Gardner guy, a Kyle Hamilton. Again, there's so many names that we could just throw at you. whoever your people are, right? To me, just take the highest player on the board. Don't say, well, we're going offense, or go and say, we're going defense. I don't want you to just be stringent. I want you, quite frankly, be as flexible as possible. And free agency, fill as many holes as you can. Fill them all if you can. And then in the draft, it's easy. It's BPA, whatever slides to you. Okay, we can use one of those, sure. Don't even have to think about it. That's what I want. So there is an argument to be made to go D at 4 and 10. I would rather split it. In a perfect world, have one offense, one defense, whatever that combination is. If it's Icky at an NC State and he's your offensive lineman at 4, great. And then at 10, you take Sauce or trying to think, you could go, wide receiver again, whatever combination, whichever way you want to switch it. Hopefully, Kayvon slips to 4. You get your pass rusher, then you get your wide receiver, or you get your offensive lineman, or whatever combination works. I don't think you should go in with a square thinking and just say this is how it's going to go. That's not what I want. But to your question, there is an argument to be made to go defense. I think that will not be well received by the fans because the Jets, for 8 of 9 years in a row, went defense with their first rounders and ignored the offense. I'm fine with showing the offense some love. In a perfect world, I think you split. Let's go back to Jared here. Jalen Petre reminds me of Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger. I've heard a lot of people say that. He's been having a good Senior Bowl himself as well. He is a very interesting player. And by the way, Honey Badger, also a free agent. He considered the Jets a couple years ago. And again, one of my big questions to Green Bean on Monday's show was, okay, they're likely going to have 2 new starting safeties. Who are they? Now, me personally, I don't think they go all in on a Marcus Williams, Jesse Bates, and draft a Kyle Hamilton. Now, maybe something happens, like Hamilton slips to 10, or you trade back, he's still there, and you're like, well, he's just too good, and you take it. But I just don't think they go all in at safety. We're going to find out this year, though, how much do the Jets value the safety position? We're going to find out because they have the money in free agency, and then we have the draft. If they ignore Kyle Hamilton and ignore the safeties in free agency, then we're going to be like, I guess safety's not that important to the Jets. I mean, we're going to find out the answer to that question, although some people believe they already know based on the Jets trading away Jamal Adams and then doing whatever they're going to do with Marcus May. So that's potentially possible there as well. So again, something to keep an eye out for here. Again, you're listening to the Jet Zone. Whether it's just the audio only, if you're listening to this later, right now we are streaming live early on a Wednesday afternoon around 4:20. Again, wherever you're watching, I see all kinds of new people in the chat. Again, show your support. Thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, makes a tremendous difference on YouTube. And also, if you're watching on Twitter or Facebook, hit the follow and like button as well. We appreciate the support. And make sure you show your support for the show. Again, this is a lot of fun. I love doing this, and these video streams have been awesome as well to do. I just think to me, this is the most fun you can have in the whole wide world is doing shows like this, and that's it for me. So again, and also you see on the scrolling ticker, if you're watching the video stream, you can follow me on Twitter at BoyGreen25 everywhere, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Again, if you guys have questions or topics you'd like to be addressed on the show, feel free to comment those in, and we will get to those here on the program. So again, we talked about the Mekhi Becton situation. Let's give the other side of it, George Fant, real quick. There are numerous people, but more so the Pro Football Network is reporting that the Jets and George Fant are talking contract extension. I'll have a column on this coming out tomorrow. It makes a lot of sense. This Saleh believes that George Fant hasn't even scratched the surface of his potential, and they really think he's got a lot of upside. And again, he's just former basketball player that the Seahawks took a flyer on. All the athleticism is there, and he translates very well to this new offensive scheme here from an offensive line perspective with this new Saleh West Coast action wide zone scheme that the Jets are operating with. So it makes sense that the Jets would want to kind of aggressively potentially look to re-sign George Fant because, again, you can never have enough offensive linemen. And I want to use this as a quick way to answer. We didn't get this question in the chat, but I've been asked this question before, so I want to address it. People said, oh, wow, now trade George Fant for a pick, and then you're doing pretty well. People, okay? The Jets are dealing with what the kids call a first world problem, okay? Wow, we got Mekhi Becton, we got George Fant, and then whatever happens with Morgan Moses, phenomenal, great. We got all these offensive tackles. Let's trade them. And I'm like, whoa, people, time out. You can never have enough good offensive linemen. So from that perspective, I am in no position and have no interest in trading Fant or Becton at this point. Again, first off, trading Becton makes no sense. Contractually, it makes no sense. His guarantees this year are so crazy that it would make no sense. The first opportunity, if you wanted to move on from Becton, would be next year. So all that's nonsense. And then on George Fant, the coaching staff loves him. George Fant loves being a Jet. And again, they're talking about contract extension talk according to Pro Football Network. And again, I will have an article on that on Heavy on Jets. Feel free to like that community as well with over 16,000 Jet fans that they're talking contract extension, which would be great and a very proactive move for the green and white. So keep an eye out for that. But again, why trade a surplus? You're in a good position. The Jets, when Becton went down, normally Becton goes down week 1, your whole thing is crud. Okay, Zach Wilson is screwed. The offense is screwed and everything. But no, the Jets had the perfect solution. Flip George Fant from right tackle to left tackle and insert Morgan Moses in. That's why you made the move for Morgan Moses in the offseason. You had that luxury. So I'm not trading away that luxury. That's not something I'm operating with. So George Fant's looking good. And again, let's give credit to Joe Douglas. Because how many Jet fans wanted Jack Conklin, right? Remember, he was a star coming from Tennessee. He wanted a lot of money. There was reports that the Jets and Conklin, as soon as free agency opens, are going to sign and fall in love with each other. And he ends up signing with the Browns on a massive deal. And then the Jets pivot and sign some guy named George Fant, who doesn't have the same sex appeal or track record that Conklin had. And Jet fans are like, boo, Joe Douglas, you cheap bastard. But guess what? He nailed that pick. He nailed that signing, man. He nailed it. A lot of Jet fans criticized Joe Douglas for that signing, and it's worked out beautifully. He went from playing average as a right tackle his first year, although everyone questioned it, and then this past year, he was one of the best left tackles in the NFL. Look at the advanced stats. Look at the advanced metrics. He gave up like 1 sack all year, and then the PFF elite pass rating grade for pass protection was phenomenal. I mean, George Fant was great. So let's give some credit to Joe Douglas for nailing that. Now, he's made some mistakes. The weird Ryan Khalil thing was weird. The 2020 draft class has imploded, but he's done some things right. The trades, of course, Sam Darnold, Chris Herndon, Jamal Adams, obviously, those have been good. And then George Fant, that's another feather in the cap for one Joe Douglas. So let's give some respect. Let's put some respect on that man's name. Let's jump back into the comments here. All right, we got Braden on YouTube. The offense defense of the first round is intriguing, especially if you, like me, and want safety Marcus Williams and linebacker Foyesay Alakun in free agency. I agree with the split. Again, that is my modus operandi. I'd prefer a split. And again, I think there are so many combinations that you can go with depending on what you do in free agency. And that's what I love about mock drafts is mock drafts are designed for people who complain like, too many mock drafts. For me, you can never have enough mock drafts. I mean, I guess I would say that since I have a series on my YouTube channel called Mock Draft Monday, where quite literally we spew out other mock drafts every week. So obviously I love it. But the point is that this gives you thought process like, man, what's going to happen? What combinations can you do? Free agency happens. Now what are we going to do? Post Senior Bowl, risers, fallers, and everything else. So we fall in love with all kinds of different people. Let's go to Force of Phil, and I saw you subscribed on the YouTube channel. So, Force, thank you so much for the support as we're doing this live stream. Again, another reminder, everybody, subscribe on YouTube. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. So, thank you, Force, for jumping on there, doing that. Got the notification. You hopped on the bandwagon. Appreciate you. Love it. Extension for Fant Nice. Again, that's not official, but they're working on it behind the scenes. So, keep that in mind. And as Force says, you need 3 offensive tackles nowadays at least, 100%. Again, a swing tackle for jumbo packages and also just in general with the kind of volatility of the game, you know, the NFL eating its young and the injuries that occur. You need as much protection as possible. Let's go to Jared here. Would you draft the cornerback early, prefer to bring in a veteran, or do you think it's more important to help the D in other ways, safety, linebacker, defensive end? Great question, Jared. I will say this. Is that I thought the corners, again, I will continue to eat this L anytime this is brought up. I thought the corners were going to suck last year, to be honest. I loved Bryce Hall, and Javelin Gitcher was okay, and Brandon Eccles was a total unknown. So I loved Hall. I thought Hall had a lot of potential to be a solid number 2 corner, and he was. He was great. He was phenomenal. But I still sensed that they needed that number 1 corner that could kind of hold the room together, and then the rest is good. And despite the phenomenal year these corners had, again, I was wrong on that. I still think they need a true number 1 lockdown corner. That's what I think they need. And whether that's Derek Stingley, although he scares the hell out of me, whether it's Sauce Gardner, whether you go out and get a Stephon Gilmore, again, some people have thrown that out there as you get your number one guy, and then you kind of roll with it. To me, I think you need a number one corner. I think that changes the entire dynamic of the team. But do I think it's more important to help the defense in other ways? I think number one on their list should be pass rusher. I think that should be top billing, quite frankly, for me. And so Kayvon Thibodeau is on the top of my wish list. Aiden Hutchinson is on the top of my wish list at 4. If one of those guys are there, that's what I'm doing. So I'd love another pass rusher. In terms of linebackers, again, Connor Hughes, you could listen to the Mock Draft Monday special from a couple weeks ago. He argued linebackers not really a need for the Jets. They have C.J. Mosley and they have Quincy Williams, and most defenses in the NFL play a form of nickel, which means that you only have 2 linebackers on the field instead of the 3 that are natural in a 4-3 scheme. So he made a great argument. I hadn't really thought about that, but that could be, although I still think they need a linebacker. Safety, obviously. I think you're going to have to mix draft and free agency. I'd love to see, them swing for the fences for Jesse Bates, Marcus Williams, who are both incredibly young and dynamic. Jesse Bates is going to be in the Super Bowl, and we've seen what Marcus Williams has done consistently throughout his career as a ball hawk. So either one would be great, and then pair him with a draft pick, whether that's second or third round, and kind of pair it together. I think a corner is important, but if I had to power rank it, it'd be pass rusher number 1. It'd probably be corner number 2, safety number 3, linebacker number 4. I think that's how I would rate them. But again, I still think, and another need you didn't even mention, defensive tackle, because Foley Fatukasi, I think, is going to be gone. I think he's going to get the bag. What I'm hearing is he's going to get a deal if he reaches free agency in between $7.5 and $8 million per year. And that's too rich for me. It's the Damon Snacks Harrison conversation we had a couple years ago where how much do you pay? Because the stats aren't there. Some of the advanced metrics are for some run stuffing percentage, but again, look how bad the Jets were on run defense this year. But you look at some of those analytics, and quite frankly, I just feel like it's going to be hard to convince yourselves. Now, look at it. The Jets already paid Foley Fatukasi. So there's one guy. You paid Carl Lawson. You're going to have to pay Quinnen Williams. I mean, how much money are you going to put in this thing? So, and especially for a guy that doesn't really give you any wow stats. And again, teams believe they can get run stuffers anywhere. They could get like a Star Latuale or whoever your fat hog molly run stuffing, clogging, Tony Siragusa, whoever, big man, in the middle, Chris Jenkins, right? Your big man in the middle of that team that kind of just eats up guys to open up freedom for others in a 4-3 defense. Again, I think that's another underrated need for the Jets this year. So keep an eye out for that, Jared. But great question. I really love that. Brandon, JD doesn't trade good players. He maximizes value for players he knows aren't going to work in the long run. We haven't seen that yet, but this may be the offseason where Joe Douglas finally trades to bring assets in. He has done a great job of trading assets away and getting more value than we think. Sam Darnold, Chris Herndon, Jamal Adams, go through all the names. He's gotten great return on investment on all those guys. Now, will he be willing to flip the script if the right opportunity presents itself? Will that be Danielle Hunter of the Minnesota Vikings? Will that be Jerry Jeudy with the Denver Broncos? Because new regime change, they've already paid 2 receivers. Will they pay 3? I don't know. So will he go get Calvin Ridley or whoever your guy is? Again, that's a big question. So we haven't seen it yet, Brandon, but I think this could be the offseason where that changes. And again, Jared is giving a plug here. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, people. Hit the thumbs up on the video. Hit the subscribe button. I'm seeing new people jumping on. Again, we're streaming live simultaneously in 3 places, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And this is the Jet Zone, a weekly New York Jets podcast that comes out every Wednesday. We've recently kind of obviously been on video here. It's been a predominantly audio-only podcast for the last decade, but I love doing this video thing. All the cool live interactions are a lot of fun, so please, as Jared says, hop on over to YouTube. Even if you're watching on Facebook or Twitter, please take a quick second to jump over to YouTube to show your support. We got a lot of cool content there as well. Back to Jared here, although we got a lot of comments coming in. Mock drafts help to learn about prospects. Have a little fun with it. That's how I say. All these people that say, yeah, I hate mock drafts. Like, stop being a party pooper, man. We learn about different prospects. We have fun talking about the draft process. The Jets could trade up. They could trade back. The Jets and Lions are at the Senior Bowl. They talk and trade up from 4 to 2. I don't know. Maybe. Okay. And then we've heard about the Ralph Vacchiano from SNY trading back from 10. All this is fun to me. It's speculation. It's a lot of fun. And that's how I look at it. I create articles for content for all of us to enjoy, podcasts and things, because I love interacting with the fans. Let's go to Braden here. Is Jerry Jeudy really an option? Here's what I'll say. Okay, here's what I'll say. I've got good friends over at the Broncos, and they have not told me this. So this is my speculation. This is the rampant speculation hat on. But they just threw a lot of money at Tim Patrick. They just threw a lot of money at Cortland Sutton. Now they have Jerry Jeudy, who is not due for money right immediately. He's still got a couple more years on the rookie contract. But if you're looking at this from my perspective, you have a new head coach in who has no ties to Jerry Jeudy. George Patton, the new general manager, who has no ties to Jerry Jeudy. So the emotional connection of a guy like, I don't know, like Joe Douglas, for instance, he has ties to Mekhi Becton. That was his first pick ever. I imagine it's going to be a little harder to trade him than a player that was drafted like Jamal Adams, who he had nothing to do with. This was just leftovers in the fridge. You moved into a new apartment and you had leftovers in the fridge. I mean, how attached are you to those leftovers? I don't know. Me personally, I throw it out. No attachment whatsoever. But maybe if you spend the money on it, you're like, boy, I did buy that Chinese food. It's probably bad. It's been in there a little too long, but I might just eat it because I spent money. Sunken cost, the emotional connection. So I'm just kind of playing speculator here, okay? The Broncos already paid 2 of their 3 receivers. You're going to pay a 3rd receiver? That seems like quite a luxury for a Denver Broncos team. And think about this. What if that's Green Bay Packer Central, right? Aaron Rodgers wants to go play for Nathaniel Hackett, who he has a great relationship with. Hell, he wants to bring Devontae Adams with him. You're going to have Tim Patrick, Cortland Sutton, Devontae Adams, and Jerry Jeudy? Maybe it's going to be an all-Madden team. But for me, I think that makes him expendable. I think that makes him available. I think that's a call I'm making if I'm Joe Douglas. So is he really an option, to your point, Braden? I'm not sure if he's really an option in terms of I'm reporting Jerry Jeudy is for sale. I'm not saying that. But I'm just simply saying that I'm reading the room. I'm reading the tea leaves, man. They already paid 2 of their receivers, so they're going to pay 3? Is he available? He hasn't been exactly a superstar for a guy that's been a phenomenal route runner. That was his MO coming out of Alabama. His hands were a little questionable. And he had some games where he kind of disappeared. I don't know. That is the kind of player, if I'm the Jets, those are the kind of players I want to bring in. Not Michael Thomas, who's got this baggage, and maybe he'll be a much cheaper option, like a mid-rounder. But the contract, the punching a teammate, like all of that, and then the weird ankle surgery thing where he did it super late and then ended up missing the entire season, like all that is like, ugh. Jerry Jeudy has a little less baggage, a little younger, and more upside. I don't know. Jerry Jeudy is a guy I would explore for sure. Force a fill here. Jerry Jeudy available. Gimme. Hell yeah, man. Again, imagine that combination. He's basically a younger Calvin Ridley, right? Who both come out with this great route running prowess. To pair him with Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, I like receiving corps that give you a little bit of everything, right? Again, the one thing that's still lacking in this Jets receiving corps is like massive size, like a Mike Williams, like a Megatron, like a freaky, big, rangy Larry Fitzgerald, great wingspan, throw it up in his range, and he can come down with that receiver. Like they need something like that. Now, Jerry Jeudy isn't that, but he could certainly help make things a little interesting. Let's go, Braden. Haha, Mims for Jeudy straight up. Who says no? Braden, who says no? And it's really unfortunate on Mims. Real quick on Mims, as we're kind of talking about. I mean, it's just a bummer, man. Because Mims, all this upside, and then I'm looking at my shelf over here on my bookshelf. I have the series of unfortunate event books, right? I mean, that's what Denzel Mims' NFL career's been. He never scored a touchdown in 2 years. He had food poisoning from bad salmon at the Jets facilities. Not great. He had COVID, not great. Learning a brand new offensive system, not great. Again, I'm not trying to make excuses for him, but just look through the actual things that have happened to him. You're like, oh, boy. And then some people question the work ethic. Some people question kind of the chutzpah in practice, like he's not really full go at times. The coaching staff obviously hasn't fallen in love with him. The opportunities haven't been there. Again, it's just yikes. And especially in terms of opportunities, the last bunch of games when everyone was injured, it was Denzel Mims' time. He did nothing. The one time he stepped out of bounds, so he couldn't catch a ball because he was ineligible. If you step out of bounds, you be the first person back to touch a ball. I mean, geez. I mean, the whole Mims thing has been an epic disaster. So that's been super disappointing from a Denzel Mims perspective. I don't know. I don't know. But as Brain says, JD can do it. So maybe he can. Maybe that's it. For me, here's my prediction on Mims. I don't believe he's a member of the team next year. I think the most apt thing that could happen is in conversations, and this happens, if anyone watches Draft Day, by the way, I saw Joey Molinaro, who's a great comedian and everything. He was trashing my movie Draft Day. Draft Day is one of my favorite movies. I love Draft Day. And Kevin Costner, I love Draft Day. And every first night of the draft, I watch Draft Day, the movie. It's a tradition in my household. And I will say this, and this kind of pairs to this point, is what happens leading up to the NFL draft is that teams have conversations. So the Jets and Bills talk like all week, and they say, hey, if we moved up, what would it cost? And they kind of talk about it and set up the skeleton of what a deal would look like. So on draft day, if the right player is available, the Bills go, okay, we'll move up. We'll take that guy. Let's do it. And then the deal is consummated actually on draft day, but they talked about it leading up to the week. To go back to the original point, I know this is a long diatribe here. I believe ultimately Mims will be a part of a trade-up package. The Jets will, here's an example. Jets have pick 35. There's a player that's fallen down the board in round 1 that they really like. Maybe it's an offensive lineman. Maybe it's Trey McBride, as we talked about earlier. And then they say, hey, Packers, Eagles, who have 3 first-round picks, and he's from the Philly area, so maybe. So they call up the Eagles, let's just say, use that as the example, and they call them up and say, hey, we'll give you 35 and Denzel Mims and like a 5th rounder or something to move up to your pick at 20 or what have you. And maybe, booyah, that's how they move up. I think ultimately Denzel Mims is not a part of the team next year. And number 2, I do believe ultimately that Denzel Mims is part of a trade up package, whether it's from day 2 to day 1, getting a 3rd first rounder maybe for the Jets, or maybe launching back into day 2 to get up to the top of the 2nd round. It'll also be easier when the day resets because, again, for folks who don't know the draft lingo, again, I'm a massive draft fan, but for those who don't know, the draft is broken up into 3 days. Day number 1 is the first round. Day number 2 is 2nd and 3rd round, and day number 3 is 4 through 7. So when these days reset, right, like the draft ends, right, you get an opportunity to go, and you breathe, and you reevaluate the board, move chess piece around. These guys are gone, these guys are gone, these guys are gone. And then you can reassess, and you have like 24 hours, essentially. It's a little less than that, but you have 24 hours to reach out to teams, call about trade-ups and all kinds of things. That's how I believe ultimately Denzel Mims will be moved. All right, let's go through a couple of comments here, more comments. Jared Helmuth, do you think the Jets need a true X receiver? Do you think that more guys like a healthy Davis and Moore would be good enough? I don't think so. To answer your question, Jared, I don't think they're good enough with what they have because obviously, as we saw at the end of the year, guys could get injured. Elijah got injured. Corey Davis got injured. And then we're going back to those days of Greg Salas, David Clowney, and no offense, Jeremy Curley's of the world. Like, you're getting these guys who are having to do more than they're supposed to. Have as much depth as possible at wide receiver, and then when injuries happen, okay, no problem. This guy gets dinged up. Okay, we got this guy. We got this guy. We got this guy. So I do believe they need that true number 1 alpha wide receiver. And again, it all falls from there. Because if you want to double team him, then Elijah's got a good opportunity. You want to double team him, Corey Davis is a good opportunity. Get me a gosh darn tight end for the love of everything that's holy. So, again, you're going to have to make business decisions. So I do not believe, to answer your question, Jared, that Davis and Moore are good enough. I think you need more. Okay, I bring up the bull. Can I have some more, sir? More. That's it. More, baby. Give me seconds. More. Thirds. Everything. Love it. Jared, I actually just watched Draft Day yesterday. I love Draft Day. Again, one of my favorite movies, man. I love it. And again, I'm not even kidding. Like, I watch it every draft. I've watched it probably since it came out, which was whatever, 2008, 2009, 10, 11, 12, whatever year that was. I've been watching it every year on the draft. First night of the draft, I carve out the time and I watch it. So, Braden, you have never seen Draft Day? Stop what you're doing, Braden. Watch Draft Day right now. I'm not even kidding. Carve out time to watch Draft Day. I have it on DVD. It's actually for free. If you use like your smart app on your TV, you can like search movies and it'll search across the entire like internet and where you can watch it for free. Draft Day, dude. Draft Day. Make it a part. It's so fun. It's such a fun movie. And again, especially if you're a real big draft fan like I am, like, so the mock drafts are fun to me and all that stuff. 100%. You gotta jump on. I can't give that a high enough recommendation. And as Mark Orlando says, Vontae Mack, no matter what. And I won't spoil the movie for you, Braden, but again, phenomenal. It's just great. And Mark, thanks for joining the party. All right, let's go back to Jared here. Again, everybody, I'm seeing more and more people jump into the chat. Guys, wherever you're watching, first off, feel free to drop any Jets questions or topic in the conversation. I can see wherever you drop it, whether you drop it on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, I can see it on my screen. Shout out to StreamYard for setting this up beautifully. So if you have questions or topics you want covered, drop them in here. We'll get to them on the show. And also, please show your support. Again, thumbs up, subscribe, like and follow wherever you're watching. Again, @BoyGreen25 everywhere. All right, back to Jared here. Would you trade for Amari Cooper? High cap number, but can be cut after this year with no hit? If yes, what do you think it would take? Yes, I would trade for Amari Cooper. He does have a high cap number, but the guarantees are non-existent through the rest of the contract. So that makes it super amenable. Also, you can potentially do a restructure on any potential deal. And what would I think it would take? Well, that's where it get interesting because the Cowboys are going to have to create some cap space here. And they have CeeDee Lamb. They've got Cedric Wilson who's a free agent. They have Michael Gallup who's a free agent. They have Dalton Schultz who's a free agent. So long story short, they have to make business decisions, and moving Cooper would potentially alleviate some of those cap issues. I would trade for him because I think he's a great route runner. I think he's a good leader. He's not really a diva. I know he was in some diva-ish scenarios where he was on a radio show and saying, hey, I need the ball more and things like that. I mean, what wide receiver doesn't? But I think Amari Cooper is the right kind of guy I would bring in. A true alpha, really good player. In terms of what it would take, I would say a mid-rounder, to be honest, like a third-ish or a conditional third or fourth. I wouldn't go as high as a first, obviously, and I think a second is too high. Those seconds to me are basically first-round picks, so I value them incredibly. I value them a lot. There's no other way to put it. But a conditional third or fourth on playing time incentives and things of that nature, sure, I'd do it. And again, you help out the Cowboys, they get cap relief, and Jerry Jones has been roasting Amari Cooper every chance he gets. So, yes, he's the guy I'm interested in. Let's go to Vinny and the Jets. I guarantee Jets flip 2 of their first 4 selections for established players who could play day one, brother. Wow. That's a hot take. I love it. Okay, if you got bold predictions, feel free to drop those in here before we sign off here on the podcast. Bold predictions, either for the offseason or for the regular season, super early here in February. That would be bold. Wow. So 2 of their first 4. So probably 10 because 4, I mean, if the Jets give up 4, I mean, they better get something like, I mean, I can't even think of who the player would have to be. 4th overall? Like if you traded that, you'd have to get something nasty, something crazy, like some player. Like I wouldn't give up 4 for Calvin Ridley. Hell, I wouldn't give up 10 for Calvin Ridley. Not because I don't like the player. There's just too much unknown with the contract and everything else. But yeah, 4 I wouldn't. Maybe 10, maybe for the right deal. I'd prefer a trade back and then just have multiple assets to play with. But that's interesting. And then, 35 or 38 are super movable. Those pieces actually, according to the analytics, are moved more often than not with those day 2 picks. And again, all the extra time you have to move all that. But I love that, Vinny. I love that. That's great. That's hot. That's hot. I love it. Love the sizzling hot takes. So again, just to recap a couple of topics that we talked about earlier on the show right before we sign off here on the Jet Zone. First off, obviously Cam Clark. Unfortunately, his career is over. Again, if he continued to play, he would risk paralysis, and he had to make a business decision for him and his family. No question. He made the right decision. Bummer news for the Jets in their 2020 draft class. So Cam Clark retired. Robert Saleh at the Senior Bowl. Mekhi Becton and George Fant will battle for the left tackle job. So ring the bell, baby. We got a left tackle competition in early February. I'd rather have it no other way. So we have that as well. And then, of course, the Senior Bowl. The Jets were speaking with Trevor Penning and a couple other players. I did a piece, Daniel Fafale. I really probably butchered that name, but he's like the 6'8", 387-pound offensive lineman the Jets were doing some work on. The Jets are doing a lot of work on the offensive lineman and tight ends, which shouldn't be surprising. But check out Heavy on Jets. Okay, Heavy on Jets. I pump out maybe 2 or 3 articles every single day. So make sure you guys check out that. For articles, insight into players they could trade for, players at the Senior Bowl they're connected to. Those are the kind of pieces I like to write. So keep an eye out for that. Braden, 4th for Davante Adams. Again, I don't see that happening. Maybe the Packers tag him, but I don't know how they're going to get the money to tag him, quite frankly. It's going to be one of those weird staring contests, but I don't believe he reaches it. And again, it takes 2 to tango. So again, on Davante Adams, I just don't see it. I mean, you got to try. If he reaches unrestricted free agency, you give him the full court press. But I think he probably goes where Aaron Rodgers goes. Back to Jared here. My guess is they're staying at 4 and take one of Thibodeau, Neal, Iquanu, or Hutch. Well, that would be phenomenal. Those are the top 4 players on my board, Jared. And if I had to power rank them, I'd want Thibodeau, Hutchinson, and Neal and Iquanu are kind of tied. People are kind of moving me all over the place. I like to have an open mind in the draft process, and I allow draft analysts to convince me. Like, for instance, prior to all this, I said, Kyle Hamilton, you can't take him. But Ryan Roberts gave a very compelling pitch on my Mock Draft Monday series of why you should consider it. And you guys should listen to that if you haven't already. So check out the series. All those videos are up. We have 4 or 5 episodes. They're like 30 or 40 minutes a piece. They're kind of nice little slices from different perspectives. So I'd come into it with an open mind, but I'd be fine with that if they're staying at 4. Last question here from Caden Smith. Everyone talked about grabbing players like Jermaine and Zion at 35 and 38 and Muma at 69, but those players are really playing well in practices, could move up their stock. Yeah, Muma certainly at the Senior Bowl, 100%. So that one, Muma could be. He's an intriguing player. Jermaine, I think he could be a first rounder is what I keep hearing. Zion, the versatility interior offensive lineman, he could be as well. Again, the process, there's going to be players who rise. There's going to be players who fall. There are going to be pro days where like, wow, they blew up and sucked at their pro day. So again, it's interesting fodder. Again, talk about what you want. It's interesting fodder there. And again, it'll just be fun to watch. But again, what I love about this is on my afternoon radio show before COVID happened, and I haven't done that show in a couple of years. What I would do on a Monday is I'd have a full first round mock for all teams. And it would be funny how things would happen. And the Jets were connected to certain guys that changed my mock. Like a couple of years ago, when they had the 3rd overall pick, it had to have been the Quinnen Williams year. After DK blew up the combine, I said, DK Metcalf, 3rd overall pick. Obviously, I was kind of kidding. I said it kind of jokingly, but it's funny how prospects rise and fall and then change your mock and your theories. So apparently, though, that would have been a good pick because DK looks fantastic. But let's go to Force of Phil. Just got drafted on Amazon Prime Video. I'll check it out later tonight. Booyah! That's what I'm talking about. Again, you will not be disappointed. I've heard some people hate it. They think it's cheesy or corny or whatever. If you love the draft, you'll love them. You'll love it. And again, it's an annual tradition. I watch it every single year. I'm not bullshitting you guys. I do it every single year. All right, one more here from Jared. They re-signed Fant, expect Becton to come back healthy. Thibodeau and Hutch are gone. Do you still take an offensive lineman? Absolutely, I do. Absolutely. Because, again, you never know what can happen because you're losing Morgan Moses. So that's your swing versatility. Because here's why. Because let's say you go Icky, who's the NC State phenomenon. He has the capability to play right guard. Play right guard this year, and then if Becton continues to suck or is unavailable, whatever the case, then you flip him to right tackle, and then boom, you got your tackle tandem or whatever. So 100%. You can't be complacent, and that's what they would be if the right situation presented itself. Again, if Thibodeau and Hutch are gone, I think the BPA on the board will be the 2 offensive linemen, whether Neal or whether Icky. So 100%, I 100% am open to taking an offensive lineman. Go to Braden here. I love Icky's highlights. Happy to take him at 4 if we can't come away one of the 2 edges. Again, that's my theory right now. Again, I am open to interpretation. I'm open to changing my mind. But right now, I have the 2 edge rushers, 1 and 2. I prefer Thibodeau to Aiden Hutchinson. But hey, different strokes, different folks, whatever the combination. And then the 2 offensive linemen. Again, they're kind of close to me. I preferred Neal, but people are selling me on Icky. So, and again, ACC guy, I've seen a lot of tape on him. But we'll kind of see. We'll kind of see on that. But that's how I stand right now, is a trench warfare. Trench warfare there. Jared, Icky's going to get the nickname IHOP because he makes pancakes all day long. I love that one. That's a good one. That's a good one. So he has the Icky nickname, but I'd be all for IHOP. Who's the place has like the Grand Slam breakfast? Is that Denny's? Is that IHOP? I don't know. But either way, the point is that, you know what, a lot of these guys are a lot of fun, and the Jets have the assets to turn this thing around very quickly. Let's go back to Caden here. If we draft Neal or Iquanu at 4, I want Karlaftis at 10 if he's there. Wide receiver's in need, but solid needs an edge. Yeah, again, wide receiver I think could be available at the top of the second round if you go like a Jahan Dotson or you trade back up for a Drake London maybe. Karlaftis, again, I'm hit or miss on. I need to bring on a Purdue guy because I want to get more familiar and I want to hear the sales pitch for Karlaftis. I know he's a polarizing guy in Jets fandom. Half of them hate him. Half of them like you, Caden, are given the pitch for him. So we will see. I'm not quite on the Karlaftis bandwagon yet, but I'm not completely against it. So we will see. I need to do more. And that's another thing I really love about doing all these conversations, because I like learning about new prospects. I like hearing the pitches from Notre Dame people or Purdue people or whatever the prospect happens to be. To me, that's a really interesting part. And Braden, there you go. That's exactly it. Don't worry about wide receiver, Kane. We're getting Judy. We're getting Judy, baby. Get them all. Bring everybody in. Wow, that's a lot of fun, guys. I want to thank you so much for jumping in on the live stream. This was amazing. Again, the audio will be uploaded for all our audio only listeners on SportsGore Radio and Spreaker.com. You guys will be listening to this later, so you will not hear all the video action that was happening. But thank you so much for tuning in and checking us out. And guys, again, show your support. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. I'm trying to get over 1,000 during this draft season. We've been rising. We're in the 800s. I'd love to get to 1,000. 1K would be pretty cool. So if you could spread the word, I'd really appreciate it. Get other Jet fans. This YouTube channel is Jets content exclusively. Nothing else. It's only Jets content. So please, if you could spread the word and get your friends to subscribe and spread the love, I'd really appreciate it. Again, we do a Mock Draft Monday series every Monday where we bring on a famous draft guest. It could be a former player, could be an insider, could be a reporter, could be anything. And again, also, if you guys have suggestions for guests you'd like to see on that series, I've heard Damian Woody's out there. I've heard Connor Hughes, who we had on the show. I've heard all kinds of guys. If you guys want guests on the show, I'm a show of the people. You guys want certain guests, you let me know who they are and advocate for them on social media, and then I will try to get them on the show. That'd be a lot of fun. Again, guys, thank you so much for the support. It means all the world to me. Thank you so much. Again, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. It means a lot. We'll see you later. Again, the next video should be coming out on Monday with our next Mock Draft Monday. Thanks, everybody, and we will see you next time. Peace out.